Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much for coming out on what turned out to be a rather miserable night, but it is not miserable in here. In fact, it's a very special night because Laura Morera is with us, and we are so delighted to have her here. Friends and I were speaking not long ago about different performances we've seen, trying to decide which was our favorite. And we went through the gamut from like Water for Chocolate as the mother, right through to what we thought was the best finger-pointing variation in Sleeping Beauty that we've ever seen. And decided it was impossible to decide which was the best. So tonight we're going to celebrate Laura's career and hear all about her. I'd like to welcome everyone. There's a number of people here in the Royal Ballet School, and we have some special guests. Lady MacMillan is here with us tonight, and also some students from the Royal Ballet School and from English National Ballet School. It's lovely to have you here too. And those of you on Zoom, thank you so much. We know you're all over the world, and it's great to have you here too. So there will be an opportunity to ask questions. If you want to ask a question and you're on Zoom, please type it into the chat box, and that's being monitored. So now I will hand you over to the one and only Gerald Dowler, who is a great interviewer, a great friend to the LBC, and tonight's in conversation with Laura Morera.
Good evening, everyone, here at the Royal Ballet School and online. And of course, good evening to you, Laura. When I was asked whether I would consider tonight's gig, as it were,
no.
having thought about it for a millisecond, I said, of course, yes. I have seen you dance, Laura, I think, for your entire career. I know I don't look it, but I do remember it. And so it's a pleasure and a privilege to speak to you this evening.
Thank you.
What we'll do is, what I propose to do is if questions are likely to come, I'll pause every 10, 15 minutes, see if you'd like to ask some questions before moving on to maybe to the next topic that we're going to consider. It's a huge career. We have an hour and 10 minutes. But first thing, I'm going to ask you a difficult question. If I had to ask you how you would characterize your career, how you describe it to somebody, what would the salient points be?
Literally just
sorry.
We just had a chat out there and you talked about so many questions. You never mentioned this one. You could have started with that.
Sorry.
Probably colourful, varied, harlotty, and mistressy. Yeah, I think I've been lucky because I've done so much work.
Yeah.
And really from the bottom up, not just, principal work. And so I think, and it's gone from dramatic to humor to young to older. So it has been fruitful. I mean, I don't know, I don't have a good word, but it has a lot of breadth and a lot of repertoire and exciting. I mean, I've loved everything. I mean, the career itself has been hard, but every time I'm on stage, I don't think there's one role that I haven't enjoyed or loved, because once you're there, I mean, I've struggled with some. There was once when I was close to not going on stage, but we can probably talk about that in a minute. But I've loved it, because I'm now looking back, I think, like I was doing my stage call of Cinderella the other day, and she's got, yesterday, and she's got that walking down the stairs, at the beginning. And I thought, I didn't think that. I thought, where are the steps? Like, why is Matt not squeezing my hand? But then afterwards, I thought, this is amazing. Like, this orchestra, it's playing this stunning score, so I can dance it. And it just really hit home. I was like, how lucky are we? Sometimes you just have to ground yourself and remember, what you're doing and not get caught up in the struggles of it.
Yeah. But you're very much a company dancer, aren't you?
Yeah.
You joined the company and you've stayed through thick and thin.
Yeah.
That seems to be an element of your character, to grab hold of something and to work at it.
Told my husband about it. Been with him for like 26 years. I loved it. I mean, I fell in love with the Royal Ballet when I first saw it, when I did Swan Lake, when I was 12. And, you know, I've said this many times, but I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. You know, I was like, oh my God, they're so elegant. Look at their footwork. And then everyone was talking to me, do you want to meet the prince? And I was like, what's happening? Like, we're in another reality. Like, I hadn't seen that. And I fell in love with it. And when times got hard in the company, and you have that moment when you think, will I be more appreciated somewhere else? Shall I move somewhere else before it's too late? Even though things were hard for me, I just didn't want to, because this company had the Ashton and the Macmillan rep, you know, and that is what I really wanted to do. Then obviously Liam started, but I think that was a little bit later. And I wanted to dance that work with those people I admired. I was doing, you know, La Riche to Johann and Elina's Mary Vetsera and Rudolph. And I was working with this. Everyone inspired me. Their work inspired me. And I thought, I'd rather struggle here and try to make it than be a star somewhere else that doesn't fulfill me as much.
What was it that early on attracted you to the Ashton and the Macmillan repertoire? What is it about those choreographers that you thought, yes, there's something of me in that?
Have you watched their work? Yes. Well, I think because I trained, you know, when I came from Spain, I was talented. It sounds really arrogant, but I was talented that I could do a lot of things, but it was rough. You know, so when I came in, I had to take it right down, but it was the quality of the work. And I just didn't realize that you could speak through that work. And, you know, with Macmillan is that feeling of how I do a step, actually with both Ashton and Macmillan, but how I do a step, it's going to affect that narrative. I can shape, I can musically change something, I can bring a dynamic, I can take it down, I can take it up, and it can create this emotion throughout the whole theatre and hopefully carry this story through. And actually I remember, not just because you're here, Deborah, but I remember when I first did Manon, and I remember doing Act 3, you know, and it's quite easy with Macmillan's work to put quite a lot on top of it, you know, because it's just there, and it's, you know, you get carried away and you're like, and I was doing it, and I mean, I don't know, I was probably off on one doing something on my first stage pull. And I remember Deborah coming up to me and she said, you know, she congratulated me, but then she said, just remember that it's all in there. And it took me quite a long time to truly understand, it stayed with me, but to truly understand what that meant. And it stayed with me for a really long time, and it's completely true. It's all in there with both choreographers. They both have they're geniuses in how they tell a story, both in very different ways. And you have to be musical, and you have to be technical, but then you have to let it go and then just let it be free within the moment. I mean, to have done so much work by these two choreographers, like, I think that has been my biggest honor and privilege with the Scarlett work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what you say is something that struck me over the decades, that there are actually very few choreographers where the steps contain the meaning within them. And so many choreographers, if you took away the lights and the costumes and everything, you have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, it's true. And also that they set it up for you.
Yeah.
You know, that actually if you just take a moment and step back, it's already not just in the steps, but the way that it's been put together. You don't even have to try. You are going through those emotions. and you are in that place. You know, and I remember one of the shows that when I did Anastasia, and it got to Act 3, I'd done the whole, you know, Act 1 and 2. And then it got to Act 3, and it got to the end of her solo, when she's kind of, you know, showing her hand. And it just got me. And then you go into the wings, and they put you in a cart, and they carry you. And I was just sobbing. And I remember, like, Luca Acri was, like, one of the people pulling the cart, and he was like, oh, God, she's got, like, 2 more movements to go. And I just felt this hand like rubbing my back, like it's gonna be okay. But you know, it just gets you, and the aim is to get lost in it. And that's difficult because there are so many things that you want to not go wrong and be, you know, able and this. But if you can just get lost in it, it just expands into this incredible thing for you and the audience.
So when these extraordinary emotions are, you're portraying them on the stage, are you feeling those emotions?
Yeah, because I think, because whatever I do, so say even, I'll go to Cinderella just because it's the one thing that's in my head right now, but you know, you rehearse your solos, you rehearse your bits, you rehearse that, but then for the first time yesterday, I put it together with everyone. And I was exhausted by the end because I realized that you're acting. I mean, the whole time I'm in a story in my head. And I'm like, this sounds a bit weird, but it's not just that I'm thinking it, I'm using kind of different voices, depending on different rhythms, because if it's just one monotonous voice, it wouldn't go into my body. So, and then, yeah, just, I do think about it all the time. So it is real, and not always pulling on my true emotions. I mean, I've had, when my father died, I remember we were doing Frankenstein. And I remember, you know, there's that scene when you're looking at the grave, and I just like come from that. Or when, you know, we're doing Dance at the Gathering within 2 weeks of Liam dying. And I'd just been to the funeral, and then I got to the stage the next day, to the studio, and we did that moment in the finale when the brown boy touches the earth. I lost it, you know. So there are moments that reflect on your life, but you're actually in it. Like, I'm feeling it like that character would feel it at that time with her status and with her whole background. That's really liberating, because I think I'm gonna miss that, you know?
Yes.
Because you can become someone else and live their life, even if their life is a bit horrendous.
Do you think, I mean, you've spoken before about there being a late flowering of your career in terms of some roles, and you've taken on these roles later on in your career. Looking at that, has that been a good or a bad thing?
Well, it felt bad when I was young.
Yes.
You know, but in hindsight, it's been what it has been, and yeah, it's been good. I mean, I've done a lot of debuts after 40.
Yeah.
One of them, I think, being Marling. I think I was 40 or 39 when I debuted in that, and you know, I'm 45 now, and I'm about to make my debut in Cinderella.
Yeah.
So, right, it's like crazy, but. But you do, and Giselle, you know, Titania, I mean, quite a lot. Yeah, you have a maturity, you have an understanding of your own body, and you can own the stage in a different way. You're not trying so hard. You're embodying a lot more. You know how to move your body to... You've learned a lot from what everyone has told you. You know, I learned, for example, that I've always been an actress that is thinking. But sometimes you think it so hard, but you're not putting it in your body. It's something that, watching Lynn Seymour, I really learned from that. I saw, like, when she was looking as Mary Vetsera at the portrait, when I watched, before I did it, I watched her, and, you know, the movement is kind of constant, even though it has stillness, but there is... And I thought, oh, okay, I get it. Like, you have to put it in the body, otherwise it's not going to actually relate.
And that, you think, is you're more able to do that because of all the experience that you've had?
Yeah, I think you're more comfortable in that
Yeah.
because, you know, I come on stage and sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm home. Like it feels, you know, I can be nervous and it feels good now to step on that stage and I'm like, it's familiar territory, it's fine. You know, so I do think it's been good. On the other side, you know, you're getting injured more, it's more difficult to recover, and also you're more tired.
Yeah.
You know, physically it's more of a struggle, even though you know how to pace yourself better. So like I think a lot of the things that I'm doing now in Cinderella, I'm more proud and I can see how a younger me would have done it. And I'm a bit like, oh. I think I'm better, but it does burn a lot more than it used to, you know?
So you've spoken already a lot about Cinderella. It's in your mind, your debut is in a couple of days' time. How has that process been, acquiring this major role of the repertoire at this stage in your career?
I'm really proud that I took on the challenge. You know, I've never been a person, I've really always wanted the challenge, whether it's physically challenging or not. So I'm really proud of that. Going into it, you know, it's been hard and I've worked really hard, so I hope, you know, it all goes well and it shows. But I've worked really, really hard because I have found challenges. You know, I think I'm really lucky because it's an Ashton work, so there's already things that I find comforting that other people have found difficult. You know, like just there's a step with the broom and I just know that that bend is going to help me to actually do the steps. So I'm not shying away from what other people are finding, like if I stay more upright, it's going to be okay. But Act 2, you know, was a challenge for me because I generally haven't done that many principal tutu roles because there was a big chunk of my career where the narrative kind of was that I shouldn't be doing those roles because I didn't kind of fit in that little ballerina box that, you know, someone thought I should. And little by little that chips away at you.
Of course.
And, you know, you just think, oh, okay, I'm wrong for this, I'm wrong for this. So to suddenly be, you know, 45 and like putting on a tutu and you're like, oh. So it's been like a mental challenge. And I've worked with Leslie and we've worked together forever. And I really wanted to work with her on this and she's pushed me and she knows my issues, I guess, and also, you know, my strengths. And then it just came to a point where about 2 weeks ago that I felt like I made a real breakthrough. You know, we got over the technical, blah, blah, and then I really embodied that magical thing that Act 2 Cinderella is about. Embody is probably a strong word, but I understood it. And then I kind of opened my heart, and now I know who she is. So the technical is coming from an open heart as opposed to, here we go, I'm going to do a going round twice in a circle, you know, and just learning that moment at the end of the solo is a really hard moment. You know, just knowing that that's a focus moment. Don't try to ad-lib, don't try to dynamic it, don't try to do it, just get on with it, you know, and I know what I have to do, I know what I'm aiming for. But then yesterday I did the stage call and the music and the choreography and being surrounded by the company and just making sense of the whole story. Oh, it was really nice. I really enjoyed it, I have to say.
But you've danced in Cinderella before.
Yeah.
It's a long time ago now.
Because we used to do it quite a lot.
Used to do it quite a lot.
Yeah, so I was a star. Not literally like a star, but like I was actually a star.
Star.
Then I moved on to Autumn, which, you know, it was mentioned about my finger fairy, but I mean, I did like thousands of those. So I did a lot of Autumns, fairy godmothers, quite a lot of fairy godmothers, and now Cinderella.
And now Cinderella.
Yeah.
And that, presumably, that mirrors what has happened in other ballets in the repertoire, where you've, as it were, worked your way up. Has that helped you when you've got to the lead role?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, and also you said I'm quite like a, for me, it's all about the show.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, obviously, yes, I want to look beautiful and but it's all about the show. So it's really important for me, like, who's in my cast. Like, I don't know if other people do this, but I actually check all the way down the cast. I just want to know. I want to know whether I know these people well or whether I don't, and then how I'm going to react to them. I forgot your question. What was your question? Just went off on one in my mind.
Me too, actually. It's like working your way up through the
Oh yeah,
through the roles.
It really helps. It helps to know what everyone else is up to. It helps to know the music.
Yeah.
It helps to know where everyone is going to be at that point. It helps, you know, if we're talking about, for example, Manon, you know, really to know your relationship with all those other characters, because you've probably been most of those characters and have interacted with them in a different way. To know how where you are on stage is going to affect someone else, and how you can change that to enhance their performance, or to make it easier, or to make it better. You know, just things like that, it really, really helps. And to know the music. That's been a massive thing with Cinderella, because I think there's so very few people that have done it before.
Yeah.
They don't know the music, and, you know, it was a big panic, like, when do we go down the stairs for this or that? I kind of know that because, you know, oh, this is when the stars are doing that. This is when the seasons are kneeling down. So, yeah, it's really helpful. I think, to be honest, everyone should do that. You know, it doesn't need to take really long time. But also it's in those roles that you start to find those nuances to then make it to the bigger role.
And presumably, doing all these different roles, you've seen many others do Cinderella, the role. Do you have that? Is that in your mind at all? Do you come afresh to?
It was in my mind. It was just in my mind because I was... The thing is, when you watch something, by the time you watch it, really, it's already accomplished.
Yeah.
So in my mind, I'm like, oh, Cinderella is going to be great. And then you actually get down to do it, and you're like, oh, okay, that's a nasty step. Oof. You know, you don't. It happened with Coppelia. Coppelia, for me, I went into it quite late in my career.
Yeah.
And I went into it, and for real, I just remember the Scottish dance. And I thought, oh, I'm going to nail this. It's fast, it's this, I'm going to, great. And then I started learning Act 3. With Liam Benjamin, and I was like, I'm sorry, you want me to do what? Like foreign butters into a fouette into a double. I'm like, no, I gave that up at 40. Like, you know, that's not in my rep anymore. So it's Cinderella. I mean, yeah, I've watched Viviana. You know, I've watched Sarah. I loved Sarah Wildle.
Sarah Wildle. Yeah.
Like, I just loved her. You know, and I always joke with Adam, because I'm like, you know, everyone was in love with you, but I was in love with your wife. You know, like. I loved her, just, and she was probably, really, I remember watching her in Manon from the Wings. I was a harlot, and I remember her doing that moment in Act 1 in the Pas de Deux, when there's that first break in an arabesque, and then she turns around and then he leans her in. And I just thought, oh my God, you've just told me 1,000 things just with the way your hand and your eyes. And so I've really, and I still get inspired now, you know, by not just people that are in my same status, but I mean, I can be in class and I can look at a much younger dancer and I can be like, oh, she's doing that really well. You know, something that maybe I'm struggling with, like, how is she doing it? What is, I mean, you know, if someone's good at something, it doesn't matter. You know, you're good at it.
Yeah. Do people remember Sarah Wildle? Good. Yes, I'm going to break for questions in 1 second. I bumped into her recently, and I said to her that I remembered in Female Garde, Cinderella, etc. And she looked at me and she said, really? I thought nobody remembered.
See, this is what it's crazy. Like, I think I encourage everyone to really... I'm married to Justin, you know, Meisner, who was also in the company, and I remember, like, I mean, sometimes he was like, I don't think anyone cares that I'm on stage, you know. And then someone said to him after he retired, like 10 years or something after, we're like, Justin, oh my God, I loved you in that role. And he literally was like, oh my God, why didn't you tell me? Like, it would have made my day so much easier, you know, like, it's true, like, we don't, I mean, I did tell for me, it was the opposite. I had to control myself from telling Sarah because, you know, I just thought, I think she thinks I'm a stalker and I need to just stop it. You know, because it's, but for me as well now, you think because we're principals, we're always having a great day. We're really not. I mean, we have, you know, really, personally, I've had a lot of struggles and a lot of times in the company when I felt like I don't know where I belong. Like, what is my worth? You know, I'm a principal, but I'm barely doing any principal roles. Like, how can I keep my respect? And the only way I could do it was really every time I was given anything was to just bring everything out, you know, and keep myself relevant. And then someone, like one of the girls or the soloists, would come up to me and they would say, oh my God, Lau, it's so lovely to watch you. And then it would just make me feel like, oh, I am worth something, you know, to these people. And so it's really nice. So I always try to, if I really think someone has done something that I think it's really nice, just to make sure that, you know, you tell them, because it might just make their day or make a difference.
So remember, everyone, tell them. It's the important
tell
thing.
me. Not them, just tell me.
Shall we break for questions? If anyone has a burning question at all. Yes, there's one over there, and then I think there's one over here. Yes. We'll take it.
Just a sec. Just a sec. We need the mic because the people on Zoom can't hear the questions.
Sorry, Zoom. But seriously, Laura, I hope you're going to make me more cheerful, because the fact that you're 45 has deeply depressed me, because I've watched you from the day you've joined the company, just like Gerald, and you don't look depressed at all. But, but my serious question is, how do you feel, what does it mean to you to do something now which you would have done, I hope, quite differently 20 years ago? In particular, obviously, Cinderella.
Yeah, I don't really think about it. Like, I just think this is now. So what am I? I'm just trying to do my best now with what I have, you know, the good, the difficult. So I really don't think about how would I have done it, you know, 20 years ago. I should have got this ages ago. I mean, sometimes there is that thing when you get one show, like for a month in the country, you know, I was given one show. And I thought, well, there's not a lot of time to develop in this. So, you know, just bring out the big guns. Like, you've got to kind of do it to satisfy yourself in one show. So that sometimes is a little bit more difficult. But I just I don't look back. I just think this is the now. And I'm literally just trying to be the best I can be, honor that role, hope that everyone enjoys it, feels the magic, and that I can transcend the technical to create an experience, because that's the aim, right? That you're not, wow, that was difficult. You know, the audience should just be like, oh, God, that was magical. You know, so really, yeah, I just feel grateful, actually, you know, that I've been given that chance now.
That's good. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll do up there and then
Just chat among yourselves.
you. Coming.
Thank you very much. Hello. So I have a question about Ashton style, because Ashton style is very, very distinct, with all the movements of the upper body, all the sides and the épaulement and all those ripples and all that fast footwork. Oh, and all that stuff. All the fast.
We're getting a lot of épaulement.
Yeah, épaulement, side bends, all the ripples in the arms, at the same time doing all that fast footwork. So with Ashton not being around, how do you, as a dancer, because I've seen you particularly, I would say, in Rhapsody, I would say I use that word, embody that style. How do you do that when you haven't been around with Ashton at the same time as Ashton, although maybe you were coached by Leslie Collier?
Yeah, I think you've just kind of answered the question. You know, we are very lucky in this company that those people are invited back, or they're around, people that have really worked with them and that embodied his work, and they knew everything about these choreographers. And so she shows it, I see it. And then the difficulty is to then give you the freedom to kind of be yourself in it and not try to recreate the way that that person did it. So that's probably the difficulty. But we just have great coaches. And for me, with Ashton, Leslie, but also I was trained with that idea at White Lodge. You know, I had one teacher, Patricia Linton, during my third year, and when I watched her, I just saw like the arms, the way she moved, everything, and I just thought, oh, okay, this is what I'm aiming for. And then you just watch other people. You know, I watch videos sometimes to remind myself, even now, you know, I'm not on social media, but for some obscure reason, it turns up on my mobile sometimes, like a video of Antoinette Sibley or, you know, Leslie doing something or Margot. And then I watched it. And what really reminded me was like the joy of their dance. Like if I took that solo out of context, I would know that this is a happy person somewhere that she's loving the whole experience. You know, and that kind of inspired me. So just get inspiration. I was just lucky I got a really great coach. And, you know, for MacMillan work, I mean, I've had like Liam Benjamin and, you know, I'm just lucky. Like I was, you know, still in that generation where we got straight from people that worked with him. Thank you.
Thank you. Miss Morera, I'm so sorry I shan't be able to see you in Cinderella. So very
Oh,
good
well,
luck with
bye-bye.
that.
No.
But no. But I'm really looking forward to the mixed bill Anastasia in June. I can't wait to see you in that.
Thank you.
And I've almost forgotten my question. However, you have mentioned him a few times already. I'm very excited that you're staying with the company and you're going to be working with Lady Macmillan on looking after the Macmillan legacy. And with you and Edward Watson in the company, all is going to be very well. You have mentioned Liam a few times. Could you talk a little bit about his work and how soon are we likely to see some of the ballets coming back into the repertory?
I know, Gerald, you were going into this question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, please don't. Yeah, I can't really talk about my career without mentioning Liam, you know? It was 12 years of collaboration. Sorry. And as to when we're going to see his work, I mean, I was hoping that we were maybe going to see something this year before I retired, but unfortunately that's not the case. His work is being done in other places at the moment, which is great. Liam, someone said to me, I don't know whether it was in an interview or, it sounds so arrogant, in an interview or just with a friend, I don't know, because I'm so busy with interviews. But someone said to me, I was talking about him and someone said, you know, he saw you with a capital S. He did, he saw me, you know, and we didn't know each other before. It wasn't like we were friends. And then I think he choreographed, you know, I remember once he said something in an interview and he said, Laura Morera is the reason why I choreograph. It's as simple as that. And then he sent it to me and he was like, can't believe I said that. I was like, all right. But we just clicked. I don't know, it was like he was really influenced by a lot of choreographers, but I know Ashton and MacMillan were big influences for him, and you know, Jerome Robbins, and so it just made me feel like, oh, these clothes absolutely fit. You know, we challenged each other, and you know, he was very young and he had so much to give yet, but so, you know, his loss, it's really a loss of a great artistic talent, I think. his personal loss, you know, for me, I said in an interview that I did in an insight evening, for me it feels like someone has played a tune that was really beautiful, and then just before they hit the last note, they just left it hanging. You know, there's just that one note, and I'm waiting to have the chance to just press that last note. It's really kind of difficult in my heart to imagine, like I was breathing his work, and then I came in one day and then he was no more. And I saw him in every bit of music that I heard, you know, and of course he was so much part of this for me, that it was very difficult, you know, and also because the whole situation was very, very, very difficult, you know, but as far as the work is concerned, you know, my heart broke, and I don't know how to put it back together.
He was your
This is
work
fun.
with your work with him, though, came at a very crucial time in your career, from what I understand.
Yeah, you're right.
And that he gave you something which you weren't being given elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, he gave me so much work, and he didn't put me in a box. You know, he literally, you know, we created of Mozart in the Limbury together, then Liebestraum, Consolations and Liebestraum. Then we went into the third movement of Asphodel. You know, then I think it went into Sweet Violets, where I created Annie Crook, and he gave me that scene before I'd done Anastasia, you know, and that was one of my most beautiful memories of him, like working out that scene. Because I remember he said to me, so for those that don't know, it was based on Jack the Ripper, cheerful as always with Liam, and the Sickert kind of paintings. And my role, I was this very sweet, innocent girl, which also hadn't played very much. I wasn't given those roles very much. And then she has a lobotomy, is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I remember Liam, like, he set up the bed, and then we went to rehearsal, and he said, right, so ideally for me, you would literally just sit there kind of dribbling and do nothing. But obviously I can't put that on the stage. So let's try to have that feeling of emptiness.
Right.
Of absolute emptiness, and you know, that was the challenge. And then we went into Hansel and Gretel, where I played the stepmother, and that was a huge character, you know, like really out there, where I'm quite a minimalist. I always try to kind of be as truthful as possible to a natural way of acting. That was out there. And then Age of Anxiety, then he created, you know, Frankenstein for me. Then Asphodel came back, and we did the second movement. And I haven't told many people this, but the last time I worked truly with Liam was when Asphodel came back with 2 pigeons. And Liam spent a lot of time, he was very busy by then, but I was doing it with William, the second movement, with William Bracewell, and we worked a lot on it, and he kind of changed the intention of things, and we got to the first night, and it just worked. You know, like it just worked. And I was getting ready for the Gypsy Girl in 2 Pigeons, and Liam came into my dressing room, and he put a hand on my shoulder, and he didn't say anything, but I looked up, and he was teary, and I knew at that, he told me many times, like, you make my work sing, but I knew at that moment, like, he was really proud of us. And that was, you know, I worked with him after that once, but he was more like on tour, and he was just a pas de deux, and that's, you know, one of my last memories with him. So I think I haven't missed any of his ballets that I created for him, but, you know, and yeah, so there was just a lot there, and it's just all so different, and he didn't think, oh, you're just a strong dancer. He wasn't scared of, he was like, right, Lau, go. You know, and he would always say to me for a show, like, it's yours now, just go. You know, it was that trust.
It's very, very interesting hearing you talk about that, because the choreographers we revere here, excuse me, Ashton and MacMillan, also did the same. They were willing not to put certain dancers into boxes and to take them outside and give them something else to do. We can all think of examples of that, and I think that's a mark of quality.
Yeah, and also it's pretty amazing, you know, to be with a choreographer that's in front of you. And, you know, I remember in Frankenstein, Sarah was my second cast, or my other cast, and we were completely different at times. And it's written actually in the score, like, oh, Sarah did this, and Lau did this. And because it would just be, so now as a coach, it's difficult, because at the end of the day, the choreographer only knows what he thought would have been okay. It's not really my place, but you also have to give the dancers the freedom to go, okay, try that. And actually, you know, yeah, and I remember Zenaida coaching Swan Lake, Liam Swan Lake, the last time. And she did something slightly different. I think some people were like, that's not what Liam did, blah, blah. And she said to me, do you think it's okay? And I loved it. And I was like, I think it's okay, because it really works. And he respected you, Sen, so much. And Sen said to me, I would have told Liam and we would have had a conversation. I think he would have liked it. It has to keep breathing, but always with the absolute truth of what he stood for. Like every other choreographer, you know, what are the foundations of a Scarlett piece? And then the musicality, you know, the intention. And then just let it breathe and make it your own. That's how dancers truly are liberated within the work.
Well, that's a perfect move into our next sort of section, as it were, about...
Just make your life so easy.
You have. It's great. You'd have thought we scripted it, but there we are. But in terms of coaching and in terms of moving from stage back to studio, you've already been doing coaching quite a bit. Have the fact that you're performing and coaching at the same time, have your performances been influenced by your coaching experience?
I try not to. It's a really hard one, because I don't think I've ever coached anything that I'm still doing. I mean, I've given advice, but actually and I think that would be weird, because especially if you're doing it at that moment, you're so in your own process that it would be very hard to not put that onto other people.
Yeah.
And you never want to put your process onto other people. You want to put your experience and your knowledge, you want to give it to them, but you don't want to inflict, you know, oh, no, darling, I used to do it like this. Like, no one cares. You know, like, you know, unless it's something that it's useful. So I haven't really, I think what it's helpful is because I've done so many of those roles. What I found coaching the seasons this time is that I could actually tell them what is helpful at that moment, when to breathe. It's gonna be tiring here, so you've got to take it right down, you know, put the breath down in your belly, don't put it because you're gonna want to go up on it. Or if someone asks me, but how do you do that? I don't understand, you know. I can still show them, which I think is quite helpful, because I'm a very visual, someone told me once there's 3 ways of learning, right? One is by actually doing it, one is hearing, and one is seeing. I'm definitely a visual person. But I'm always mindful of that when I'm coaching, because I think, right, she might be a person that needs, so you have to deliver it in 3 different ways. And just to allow them, you know, Federico, who I worked with, was very much a trier. Like, he needed to try it out and have his process, you know, and you just have to respect that. So I guess I wouldn't like to coach something I'm doing, because it comes to a point, even with Cinderella, I watched up to a certain point, the shows, and then I needed to remove myself, so I would only watch the season solo, and then from the side, and then I would go. Because I don't want to then be influenced by other Cinderellas. Like, now I'm in my process, I know who my Cinderella is going to be, and I don't want to have someone else in my mind because I've seen it. You know, now it's time to kind of let everyone else go and then just be me. So I guess it's more like my experience of doing those roles hopefully brings goodness to the people that I'm coaching more than how it's affecting, because I try not to overanalyze things, and that's the other thing. You know, when you're coaching someone, sometimes you're really overanalyzing, but that's not good for me. And so you just have to let it go. So I think I'm not going to coach anything now that I'm doing. So I think that's, you know, I've coached something that I've wanted to do, you know, and that's kind of been like, you know,
Which is?
So I coached a few of or helped, I didn't coach fully, but I helped kind of give some advice to some of the Juliets, and I really wanted to do Juliet. So that was like, and the other one, I went to Finland and I coached Liam's Carmen. And that was something that we spoke about that I was going to do because we couldn't make it work until now. And so that was another one. But, you know, I was like, okay, I really want to do these two things. Get over it, Lau. You're not doing it. It's not about you. And just let it go. It's about those people and making them the absolute best. It's just not about you anymore, you know? So that's really what I'm very mindful of that.
I want to explore a little further your, as it were, your formal responsibility, which will be with the MacMillan repertoire.
No pressure.
None at all. How did that come about?
I'll just pass the microphone to them.
From your perspective.
Well, I don't know, like it'd be really interesting because from my perspective, I think that when we were doing a project that really didn't, unfortunately, it didn't happen, which was 7 Deadly Sins. And we were quite into the process and the whole thing was collapsing around us. And I remember the young people I was working with said to me, oh, we don't get a chance to know about MacMillan and do his work because they were freelancers or in different companies, and that's what I really wanted. And I thought, well, okay, I can give you that. You know, so we were still trying to kind of push the production forward, just the dancers, and I remember Deborah came to watch one of the rehearsals. We're just kind of trying to work out different like emotions and I don't know, for me, after that experience, at one point, it was the first time that Deborah MacMillan asked me, you know, I'm thinking about this. And I was just really taken aback. It just felt like I literally I was like, why me? No, that's, you know, that is huge. And I haven't had a lot of gifts in my career. Like I've had to, I mean, I have, that's wrong. You know, I've had a lot of gifts, but I mean, like I've worked pretty hard for everything and I've had to kind of work it. And that was just something presented to me on a silver tray. And I just couldn't believe it. You know, it's one of those when you're like, okay. And then we kind of left it. And then I think it's maybe because I've done so much of the work and I really honor the choreographers. Justin said that to me. I work a lot with him. He does workshops and he says, you know, God, you're always so annoying because, you know, we're doing a workshop. I mean, he says that about so many things. And that's a whole different story. But he always says, you know, if we're teaching at MacMillan maybe to like 15-year-old girls in a tiny school in, you know, Yokohama during one of like our workshops, I absolutely deliver it like I would to the company. Like for me, you're delivering that work, you're honoring that work wherever you're doing it, you know? And so he's always like, oh, Lau, but could we just, like, no. And so, you know, I think it is maybe that respect I have for the work. Hopefully that, you know, she saw that I embodied, that word keeps coming up, but I embodied something that, you know, Kenneth would have liked and that I understand the work. And also I feel like I'm a very nurturing person. You know, I always have time for other people. I want other people to thrive and to have an easier time. If I can make that happen, I will go out of my way to do it. So, and I think the company knows that, and I have good relationship with a lot of them. And so, yeah, from my perspective, that's maybe what I think.
And as time goes on, and the direct links with MacMillan and certainly with Ashton are now distant. There are fewer and fewer people. What are the challenges in your mind to be true, as you said, to be true to the actual work and to the choreographer as that time elapses?
I feel like you've got to have done it and worked it and learned it and have been coached and had so many different people that worked with those choreographers. And, you know, like I say, I mean, going into one of those works, it's like, it's so easy to just, you know, put it over the top or cut out, you know, in MacMillan, or cut out the bend in Ashton, because it is much more difficult, you know, to be at that angle with the lights in your face. But if you cut that out, what are you doing? Like, what are you, you know, you're just doing, so then if everyone did that, you would just watch those ballets and you wouldn't, I want to watch that ballet and go, that's an Ashton, that's a MacMillan, that's a Scarlett, that's a Robbins, because you know, and yes, things move on. And I think those choreographers being alive now, they would have worked with that. So it's like, it doesn't mean that we've got to just recreate, you know, and this is really random, I'm gonna say this, I don't know why I've just thought it, but when I watched the new West Side Story, the role that Mike Feist played, who was Riff, is that? Yeah, you haven't, yeah, I think it's it. And it really inspired me, because I thought, I mean, literally the guy came out and I was like, how are you gonna play that role? I don't understand, you look nothing. You know, the typical thing, you look nothing like it was meant to look. By the end, I was like, okay, you're amazing. Then I stalked him, like, on the internet. I wanted to know every interview, like, how do you... And I thought, in ballet sometimes, once the choreographers are not here anymore, it can become like you're recreating. You know, this is how she did it, this is how I did it, this is... But then you bring that different, you know, he brought this different element that worked as well, that was true still to the essence of the movie. But it was because I think it was so honest from his heart. And so I just think, surely that's what we need to do. We just need to work from our hearts. You know, I think, so yeah, it's a challenge because some people fight against it. They do, you know, fight against it. But it's impossible for me to hit that note and be in that jump where you want me to, because I need to split. You know, I need to split my legs, so I can't do it because that's very awkward. You know, we hear that a lot. You know, it's difficult stuff. I remember the first time I did Mistress. You know, I went into the studio like, you know, all thinking I'm amazing, great, let's go. And I did that Act 1 solo, and I had to stop, and I was like, whoa. You know, like, to think when some of these ballets were choreographed and what they did, it's really difficult. You know, but so you've got to accept the challenge. You know, this is what it was, and you've got to accept the challenge. And then how do you make it grow? How do you then let go of the technicalities, like I said, to then be true to what you're trying to do, which is either tell a story or bring some emotion out through musicality, or just make someone be like, oh my God, I love that because it's so dynamic, or whatever it is that the work is.
I'm going to ask you...
And I don't like it when you use that tone.
about your two favourite partners.
Okay, that's fine.
Is that all right? But I'll let you tell the audience who the two favourite partners
Okay, so the first partner, when I first joined the company, which I think was my stage soulmate, and this is nice because some students are here, was Ricardo Cervera, who I call Rick, which he hates, but now everyone calls him Rick. So we were put together. I joined the company, he was, I think, 2 years in, and I joined the company, and we were put together by Twyla Tharp, and that was in Mr. Worldly Wise, and that was the first... Someone made that.
Yeah, we remember it.
Someone made their memories quite clear. And then I just think choreographers really saw us. And the thing about Rick and I is that I think we're actually the same person, but in a different body and a different gender,
just
you know?
Split.
We are like so similar. we're both Spanish. I mean, he had a British mother, but we're both Spanish. We both talk to each other in English because we love the British humor. It just doesn't work in Spanish, so we barely talk to each other in Spanish. I pretty much learned English with Victoria Wood.
Excellent.
Because also a lot of my year, sorry I've diverted, but a lot of my year at White Lodge were Northerners. They were from Morecambe, a lot of them.
Right.
So like I remember getting into a taxi once, and the taxi driver, I was talking for a change, and the taxi driver was like, I'm really sorry, you've got like a really weird accent. He was like, your English is very good, you sound a bit Northern, but you have a hint of Italian or Spanish. I was like, yeah, I'm very confused at the moment. So, yeah, so Rick and I we just heard them. I mean, really, if you're talking about a partnership,
Yeah.
we didn't even need to try. It was just there, and you could feel it because there was excitement. You know, Rick and Laura are gonna do this, you know, and it was just amazing. And then unfortunately, I think the more people were like, oh, Rick and Laura are great, the more sometimes they stopped putting us together.
Yeah.
And then our careers went in a different way, but we always like pushed, you know, we were separated from Neapolitan for years. And then finally, when we got back together, I mean, it was like, you know, yeah, we were so excited. And we had so much fun. You know, like, we probably laughed way too much, but we just had so much fun. So I think he was really my partner.
Yeah.
But then we just went that way.
Female Garde, I remember.
Female Garde. So they gave us that one show.
One show of Female Garde.
Yeah,
The
at
dream
least it was
partnership.
an evening, and it was a Saturday, so, you know, people could come. And then his whole family came. My whole family came. I think half the theatre was like, you know,
Yeah.
Rick and Lau family.
Yeah.
And then everyone was just genuinely excited about it. And we loved it. We
Yeah.
had so much fun. You know, and we were both good with props. We're very diligent. We're very polite to each other. We've never argued, I don't think. You know, we think we have the same goal. He really respected me and loved me. No, I mean, he loves me as a person because he's like my brother, but as an artist,
Yeah.
I really respected him and loved him. And some of the most fun we've had is Let's Go and Mistress. You know, I mean, on that table in Act 2, you know, by the table just before my solo, there were moments when I forgot I had to do a solo. Like, we were just laughing so hard. Then I'd be like, no, Rick, I've got to do a solo. Stop it. No, stop it. You know, but of course, it works then because people, you know, my father would just be like, oh my God, that was, you know, with his binoculars. So.
And you had a shared musicality as well. I mean,
Yeah,
that was so visible.
We heard the music and we created, you know, we talked about Asphodel Meadows, that third movement. I think that third movement was the epitome of what Liam thought of us. It was just two very hyperactive people that just came out, moved really fast, but could move together, absolutely together.
Yeah.
And it was like, you know, 3 movements per count in that ballet.
Yeah.
So it was, well, yeah, I think it's one of the great sad kind of thing that we feel that we didn't dance together more. And then, like I say, he went one way in his career, I went the other. And then he probably set me up to understand also what a partnership is. I think for me, one of the most important things is who my partner is. I don't always have a choice, but it's like, do we have the same aim? You know, I've worked with dancers that generally, not many, but don't care who they have in front of them to partner. I mean, I literally remember someone saying to me, whether it's you or Lauren, I don't care, just someone turn up. And I just thought, okay, that's quite different to me because we're not similar either, Lauren and I. So surely, like, okay. So, and then when we changed, I was really, really lucky that when I was first doing Manon, and again, I had one show with Rupert. And then, unfortunately for her, that's not why I was lucky, but Sarah Lamb went off in the famous slide. I think she stubbed her toe. And I think because I only had one show, Monica said to me, oh, why do you want to pick up those shows? And I was like, yeah. And I'd never worked with Fede before, but he'd done so much, you know, like as a principal. And we got in and we had to work it. We had to find each other. And then it started happening, and then by the time the first show, it was like it just clicked. And then he kind of became my regular partner. And like, what a privilege, you know, because he was a wonderful partner. He's a beautiful man. Not just to look at, but I mean, he's a beautiful soul. And I think we brought out, when we started working together, I think I was quite like dramatic, you know, and he was very elegant. And I think we kind of pushed each other, you know, in that way. And we really respected each other. And I respected his method of working. And he knew how I worked. And then you go through so much together. You know, I remember doing an Onyegin where my father had just died and his daughter had just been born. A completely different feelings. But, you know, we shared so much. So he was to have Ricardo and then for us not to be put together so much and then our careers to split and then to find another partner who I think the audience were that excites me, you know, that people come and say, oh, I booked your show because it was Bonelli Morera. It's like, wow, you know, that's more exciting to me than just someone coming to watch you only, because you can only transcend when it's an ensemble, and especially with you and your partner. You can never reach those heights that those ballets can reach. And then, you know, the unexpected one, probably that I've only danced twice, was Vadim. Like, we did feed together, and I thought, okay. And it was a very difficult kind of like rehearsal period. We'd barely seen each other. And then got to the first night, and it was so spontaneous. And we just really loved working with each other. And then we did, you know, a month in the country, and again, I was meant to do it with someone else, and then it happened, and that's really... It's been actually a really big surprise, but he's just got these honest eyes. You look into his eyes, and Fede had that. The last time we did Giselle, because I was meant to do it with Roichi, who I love as well, you know. And he went off, unfortunately, a week before. And Fede, I think knowing that it was the last time we were probably going to do it together, stepped in. And I remember we were doing Act 1, and I'd been looking into Rio's eyes for quite a long time, you know, because we've been working at it for quite a long time. And I remember that moment in Act 1 when you turn round, and I saw those familiar but so open, and it unnerved me. Those eyes of Fede, it unnerved me to the point that I had to look down, because it was just, and I thought, oh, okay, yeah, that's good. Let's do this, you know. And I'm so happy because he got his job as director of Northern Ballet, and we didn't know at the time. So actually, that was the last time we worked together, and it's a really great memory because it was a really beautiful show to do.
Marvellous. Well, we're coming close to the end. We'll have 5 minutes for questions, but I'm going to ask about your swan song as Anastasia, which may have surprised some people. But why Anastasia?
I think I didn't, it's not like something that we talked about like a year before. And also the pandemic put a slight, delayed a little bit what I thought was going to be. So I think I was thinking 2 years or a year before the pandemic of going with symphonic dances. That seemed like fine. And then it happened. Then I got like, obviously a bit more life in me, and which I'm really thankful. But it's not like, like Kevin said, okay, you're retiring, let's do it. What do you want to do? Let's work out the whole season around you. It was very much like, right, I have a gap at the end of this bill. What do you want to do? And I was like, okay, well, being me, I could have just been really selfish, but being me, I thought, okay, well, it's also a McGregor and a Wilden. Yeah. So like, you have to be mindful of the program. And it's a one actor. At the moment, we're dealing with, a lot of like different situations, things that you can or shouldn't do. But I know that I loved doing Anastasia when I did it, and I loved doing the 3 acts. So really, we did ask about maybe trying to bring it back in its full, but it couldn't be done. So then I was like, I know that Deborah doesn't like taking it out of context, because I completely understand. But I just thought, for me, it had meant St. MacMillan Ballet. You know, like I said, there's 3 choreographers. St. MacMillan Ballet. I think it can really be a good vehicle for the more dramatic part of my career, you know. But also, for me, I mean, I go into Anastasia like absolutely believing that I am Anastasia. There's no doubt in my mind. But I also think for me that end, I see it as very liberating for her. That last kick to Rasputin and then that walk to the bed. For me personally, you know, I probably like see Deborah and she was like, right, that's wrong, change that. But, you know, for me, I really see it as, or I felt it when I did the shows, like finally she could breathe. She'd like kicked her demons. And whether people believed it or not, and even if she's stuck in this horrible place, she's finally free in her own soul, because she knows who she is and she's kicked. And in a way, you know, I've had my challenges in my career, and there were very dark periods. And I think I look at it like I have freed myself from those narratives, and I think I have really felt artistically very free. And I think that can be a wonderful way to look at it, because we have that in common. Anastasia with her massive trauma. And, you know, like, how much trauma is there in the world? You know, and it's just like, we can run away from it, but we can also see this is what is left, and at the end, all we can do is trying to find that peace inside ourselves, you know, and open that window inside our souls and let the air in. And I'm really, really grateful. I mean, I truly mean it, that I got the chance to be able to retire with that, you know. And I'm aware that there are some people that are coming that have never seen me dance, you know, like from Spain or whatever, and they're like, oh, you know, what are you doing? What's it like? And I thought, all right, here we go. And I was like, well, it's not chirpy, but, you know, but how amazing that I'm honored enough to retire with a Macmillan Ballet. I mean, I'm sorry, but truly, like, you know, and then I'm doing month in, you know, in Japan. Yeah. And then I'm going to try to do a Scarlett somewhere, and then I can kind of like put that bow on it and
tie it up with a ribbon.
Tie it up with a ribbon.
Yeah, that's marvellous. We have 5 minutes. I thought I'd give you the chance if there are any questions which have come out from what's been said.
Is there anything in the audience before I go?
Hi, Laura. Is there a danger the further we get away from the original choreographer not being around, say Petipa or Fokine, that inevitably something gets lost? Or is choreography maintained by the choreologist enough?
Yeah, I really believe choreography should be maintained. Absolutely. You know, I think that's the foundations that, you know, they gave you. And then it's just how you interpret that. But you always have to have someone that has an idea. That's why we have, you know, historians or people that have done the worked, and people that are keeping those legacies alive. For me, having worked, for example, with Liam, I will always know what he was aiming for. So that's how it's kept. I need to relay that, so when I'm not here anymore, someone else takes on that role, and then someone else takes on that role, and hopefully it's not Chinese whispers, you know, it's really clear. You know, and of course, like, technique advances, and you've got to be mindful of that. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's about musicality, isn't it? It's kind of about musicality, and I don't know, that's kind of, so I think if you've got that and you can put that forward, then hopefully, so I'm hoping that we don't get too far away from it. But is there a danger? Yeah, I think there's a danger. And I think it's up to people to put the right people in charge. And for all of us to be open enough to listen to everyone else that has the knowledge and not think that you know everything. Because, you know, we don't. There's so many people that know so much. Yeah.
There's just a couple of things on Zoom, mostly comments, but one gentleman is saying thank you for the humor you brought to your roles. And what are the chances of seeing you again in Hansel and Gretel? Well,
pretty low. The chances of seeing Hansel and Gretel are pretty low. The chances of seeing me in Hansel and Gretel, I would say it's like, you know, I'm not going to say 0% because I don't want to, especially when you thank me for my humor. But yeah, not a lot. But it was great when we did it.
and the last one, again, it's just, mostly it's a comment, but just like to say that when I saw 6 Giselles in one season with some fantastic casts, the one that moved me the most was Laura Federico. Tears still come to my eyes when I remember it. What a partnership. I think we all agree.
That's really nice, because Giselle is something that I came to at the late in my career, and I struggled a little bit with it, to come to terms. Like, again, it's like at the beginning you have an idea of who she's meant to be because you've seen all these other ballerinas, and, you know, it's like, it's all like this, you know, that kind of thing, and you think, oh, how do I fit in this? And it took me quite a few, I mean, I only had like 6 shows in my life of it probably, but it took me, you know, a few really thinking about it. And then suddenly it clicks, and then you know who you are as Giselle, and then it translates from Act 1 and Act 2. And then it's not about what look am I making. Again, it's just about, I'm just making that because that's just what is happening. That's the emotion. So to have a comment like that, actually, it's really nice. Because, yeah, it's a role that I probably, in my head, struggled with a little bit. Like, will I be good enough in this? So for that person, I was. So that's lovely.
That's lovely. And keep telling the dancers how good they are. Definitely.
If you think it, I mean, don't lie.
If you think it,
you know,
don't lie.
Like, no one, we know when you're lying, you know, when someone is like, you were great. And you think, no, I wasn't. But, you know, yeah. And you know, I have always had that support from people. And I really, so I thank everyone that's here today, you know, that the fact that you came out just because you're interested in my career and you want to honor, that's amazing, you know. And I've had people that have sent letters, people that have said to me at moments when I was really low, Laura, thank you. You made my day. People that are really quite old and they are queuing to get a cheap ticket for one of my shows. You know, like, and so every time you're on stage, you know, I have all this, everyone in my heart, because I think you are here, you know, I mean, some people are probably here to see my partner and they don't really care who I am, but, you know, let's just go with the fact that some people are here, you know, because you've got to honor that. Like, how amazing is that, you know? And I'm so thankful to all the support that I've had, because it has really brought me up and kept me going sometimes when it was touch and go whether I could, you know, keep going. So,
well, we are at time, but I will say there's a voice from beyond. Clement Crisp was a very dear friend for many, many years, and he absolutely adored your dancing. Absolutely adored it.
He did. Like, how crazy is that? I mean,
how crazy! But I'd mention him when he'd retired, whatever, and go for lunch. And I'd say who I'd see, and he'd look at me and went, "Oh, Laura."
I only met him twice, and I'll finish by saying that I think I did Onegin, because Clement Crisp, I'd just done my debut of La Riche, and he'd gone up to Monica at a party, and I didn't know this, I didn't know him, and he said, Onegin's coming back, I really hope that you put that Morera girl to cover it at least. So my name went up in brackets, and then someone went off, blah, 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 and then I got to do it. So it's because of him that I did that.
Sounds like Clement, actually.
Yeah. So thank you.
Laura, it's been a pleasure and a privilege.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
I suspect Laura is going to be inundated with flowers on Saturday night, so this little bouquet is from us. Thank you for all the wonderful memories you've given. I'm getting kind of choked up. You've made me laugh, you've made me cry. We don't just like you, we don't just respect you, we have such a fountain of affection for you, and we are going to miss you, and thank God you're not going far away, and that what you have learned and what you've embodied, there's that word again, is going to be shared with dancers for many years to come. So thank you, and you're not retiring. My husband hates that word, and he says you're graduating to the next part of your career. So you're graduating. Thank you all for coming, and thank you, Laura, and thank you, Gerald. As always, a brilliant interview. Good night, everybody.